Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Welcome. Yeah. I try to play the end of the music like in my head, so it's just like I'm like, all right, if you're ready, let's dig in. Like I play that in my head, even though like we don't play it while we hit record because all that's added in post editing and stuff. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I play that to my head. I'm just a weird person. I get it.
I think we all play things in our heads at times. Like I was putting the kids' pajamas on last night, and it's Bluey pajamas, so I'm going.
I don't know that I've ever even heard what the theme song of Bluey sounds like.
Well, your kids are older than mine.
I know.
But I talked about Bluey in my Bible study this morning, actually, because Bluey gave me good thoughts on a parenting dynamic of things that I, especially as a Christian, that I wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Luke was really into this show called Tayo.
Oh, yeah.
It was
Tayo.
Tayo.
Yeah.
And it's a Japanese cartoon.
Yeah.
And
liked
then
that one.
Like they just dubbed over it in English and stuff. And so we would buy the toys and stuff and it would come in like Japanese packaging and everything. But the funny thing about that show was whenever he was a bus that had anxiety and whenever he got anxious, he farted. I'm dead serious.
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
It's funny because like some of the stuff that like our kids get hooked onto or whatever, it's like, what are we doing with what are we doing, guys?
Listen, well, Anakin's obsessed with number blocks and Bluey. Yeah. And number blocks, I just saw like right after Christmas commercials where they actually have number blocks toys. And I was like, my kids saw the commercial and they were like, I want that one. I want that one too. I want that one. And number blocks is like, I mean, it teaches them numbers and gets into math and division, like all these things the further on you go. But like, each number has like a color but I want to say it's like, I mean, their accents are like maybe English or something like that, like something. But anyway, it's and Bluey's like Australia, I want to say. Yeah. So my kids are just getting.
Did they ever go through like the Blippi phase?
Oh yeah. Anakin still likes Blippi some, but like
my kids were just engrossed anytime that was on the television.
A little over a year ago. I mean, he was like absolutely.
But it was the original Blippi, though.
Yes,
right?
The original Blippi I liked better because he actually used a normal voice sometimes, part of the time.
I don't know about that.
This new one, there were times where he was more normal than this one. This one tries to be like that higher pitch the whole time, and it's not fun. But Carter and Esme, they were all into Blippi, and I mean, Carter would say BLIPPI, like, you know, they know how to spell it because he's genius in the way that he would do that. Like, if you want to watch more of my videos, just go to Google and type in my name, BLIPPI, and I'm like, you're literally teaching the kids how to do this. And my 2 and 3 year old could spell your name.
Kids.
So like we could learn from Blippi within the church, right? Like, our closer video should be like, if you want to watch more videos, just go to Google and type in SRCWV. Like, sorry.
That's funny. That's so funny. If you did that, like, I think more people would tune in just to see it happen. If we should try it and see what happens because we've got analytics on everything. SRCWV. I don't know. We may be on to something. We may be not. I don't know.
Learning from Blippi.
Dude. I mean, well, look at like
yeah.
like a lot of churches have learned stuff from Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that came out and he's like, you know, I tested and tried all of these different thumbnails and stuff like that to see if I can get more views and stuff like that. And so we do it. We change our thumbnail every single time.
Yeah.
I need to do it for the potluck. I just run out of time.
Yeah.
It is hard.
It's hard keeping up with all that. For sure. Absolutely.
Maybe I'll see if somebody wants to come in and volunteer and do that. I could teach them how.
I may have someone that would do that, or at least like do some cool post edit stuff for you too. Like where maybe when we're talking about Blippi, they could put the little thing that pops up, so we could and do a SRC WV. Like one, I might know somebody that could.
I don't know if we could get in trouble for using someone's image and likeness without their.
Well, okay, so we don't do that, but we do the SRC WV.
Yeah.
Imagine the letters. Well, if you're watching, imagine the letters are popping up on the screen right now.
Yeah. You know what an S and an R look like. Alrighty, let's get into it. Today we've got a really good episode because this is going to open some eyes in this area of your life. Well, at least we hope so. I mean, that's what we hope for all of our conversation. But our main goal is just to encourage people to take that next step, whether that looks like becoming a disciple maker or just kind of allowing yourself to be discipled, which is just part of our DNA here at Southridge. It is next steps, first and foremost, and disciple making. Leading people into a better understanding of who Jesus is and who he can be for each and every single one of us. And so I want to talk about this, and you kind of posed this. I'll give my answer after you give your answer. But whenever you hear, before you came across this, whenever you heard the term discipleship or disciple, like what was the image or thought that popped into your head whenever you heard that term?
Yeah. I thought of my youth mentor, Cheryl. I won't say her last name because I didn't get permission, but Cheryl, my youth mentor, because as a young teen, I felt like she discipled me extremely well. Like I tell her all the time, I wouldn't be where I am without her. Like I wouldn't have had the knowledge. I wouldn't have had the understanding, like the faith, like any of that. I wouldn't have had any of that without her. But she really, it wasn't just what we did while we were at church. It was the fact that she invited me into her life. Like she had me help with the camp planning, the VBS planning. She would ask me, you know, hey, I'm thinking about maybe teaching this lesson. Like, what do you think about this? She allowed me to come to... She was a food broker for Sarah Lee, and we went to I don't know, think job fair, but like for food distributors. And so like we had this whole thing set up with the Sarah Lee tent where we gave up samples of Sarah Lee foods and stuff like that. Like she let me come to this expo thing with her where we did that. But the whole time, anytime we were doing any of that stuff, I'm cleaning her office for money. We're also having conversations about God, about Jesus, about what it looks like to follow him. She would answer my questions. Like I had to do a paper for school once, and I remember like asking her questions about like what's one of the key things she learned about marriage. I don't know why this was in my paper, why I had asked her this. I don't know. Yeah. But I remember her talking about like, you know, making sure, she said in marriage a lot of times we want to swallow an elephant, choke on a gnat. And she said, remembering that the small things really aren't that big of a deal. Yeah. Like, don't get caught up in the small little things, and avoid the big things. Like knowing when you need to have better conversations or like about this big issue, not getting so caught up in just these tiny little things that might like bother you or those little pet peeves or like whatever. And I've held on to those things in my marriage. Yeah. Today. And that's something I learned as a teen. Like way before I even thought that maybe I would get married. Like, so she's who I think of, and that dynamic that we had.
Yeah. For me, it was anytime I ever heard the term disciple or discipleship, I'm always just drawn to the story that we know, or the stories that we know in the New Testament whenever we hear of Jesus and his disciples. And one of the things that I was always just like, it doesn't go into a whole lot of detail about this, but just the moments that Jesus had that were like super intimate, that are just not mentioned in the Bible. We know that he met with them and he talked with them, and whenever they had questions, he would answer them, but it was just like the day-to-day stuff, like whenever they're walking in between cities. Like I've always just been curious about what that looked like, and I'm sure, and I know that there's a reason for that not being in there, because yes, we're called to be like Jesus, but God Almighty, we fall short all the time. And so just having almost kind of like a blueprint of like the things that Jesus was talking about, or with, in those moments, would almost kind of set us up for failure in a sense. I mean, we wouldn't be able to live up. We can't just fill Jesus's shoes.
Right.
And so for us, like disciple making and discipleship is going to look different for everybody, because if we had a blueprint, then everybody would try to follow that, and it's not going to work out. But that's just what my mind goes to, is just like who Jesus was, and what kind of like little tidbits can we take away from his life that we know are going to work. Because your situation and your story and your life experiences are going to be something that are drastically different from mine, and which is going to be drastically different from someone who lived 2,000 years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad that there's not like a clear set blueprint.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, we'll get into some like guides of some things that you can kind of follow, but like, obviously within that, you've got to cater it to the individual and the person that you are discipling, or the whatever, like to know that obviously the answers and where you go from those answers and those questions like may be very different for everyone.
Well, I want to kind of talk a little bit before we get into like the nitty gritty of this, and this will be just a brief conversation, just so people kind of get an understanding of how we function here at Southridge Church. So obviously from the week in, week out stuff, we have our services that happen on Sunday. Throughout the years, we have big events, big community events where we can invite people to trunk or treat. This year we're doing community egg hunts. We have these big type events to where it's like it can kind of pique people's interest of what we're kind of about. We're about community. We're about doing this thing called life together. But then after that, we have something that is more groups related, where we take our services. Most of our groups, they take the services and the questions that are often to the group leaders, and then they meet on a smaller scale of 10 to 12, sometimes, a little bit more people, but around that 10 to 12 person area. And then after that, what we're trying to get into is the individual disciple making model. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, even here on Sundays for like kids and youth, because, a kid is not going to be able to go and have a group by themselves or get them there or that kind of thing. But like, so within their classes, they already have like that small group mindset already built in, where they do kind of dive deeper and discuss and allow those moments for questions and stuff like that. But if you only ever come to a Sunday service, like, you're not going to go very deep, right? Because it's just, I come in, I hear, I leave. I might process it with somebody I'm riding in the car with a little bit on the way home, but maybe not to a level that's needed, or like typical Bible reading, like not having someone that you can ask those questions to. And so like, groups are that place that you can come as a group and dive a little deeper into things. But even in that, like, knowing that there's still only going to be a certain level of depth that you're going to get into within a group, or like not even just talking depth biblically, but like depth personally.
Yeah.
And so like, and Pastor Scott shared this in one of the messages during our Silent but Deadly series of like, there are certain things and struggles that we have that like, I'm not going to necessarily feel comfortable talking to a group of 12 people about. Yeah. But there might be one or two people even within that same group though, that I could meet separately, that I could talk to and dive deeper in that way. And so knowing that like there are those different levels, and Jesus even had this within his disciples, right? Like he had large following, right? But then he had the 12 that really like he sat at the table with, he did life with, he did these things. But even within the 12, there were a few that he went, three that he went deeper in and invited them to a different level with. And then even like with Peter, he said, on this rock, I'll build my church. Like, and so even with Peter, like he put even a different level of responsibility and access to him in those different ways. And I think we can model our own discipleship off of that, to know that like, hey, with us in our relationships, there's going to be different levels of access or responsibility that we allow or that we give, and different levels of depth that we go into with those people, to know that like small group, yes, it's a safe place. And like we say our rules are like what's said here stays here. We try to create a safe place, but there's still like wisdom and discernment that you need to exercise, and knowing what you share on what level with whom. Yeah. And so
I don't have that wisdom. I just talk about anything with anybody.
I think though, like as pastors, I think that there's a lot that like I should say in this church as pastors, because I've been to the churches where the pastors don't share anything. Like, you know what I mean? And they try to live up to this expectation or this standard that's just like impossible. But here, like, I mean, it's modeled for us through Pastor Scott too. Like, we exercise vulnerability and transparency because we want people to know that we're just normal people too.
And that was the goal of this. Yes. Like this podcast was just to say, look, we're normal people. Yeah. We struggle with things. We go through things. Yes. We like to laugh. We like to cut up. Mm-hmm. We like to talk about shoes or movies or sit down and do reviews on ice cream, like it, or, we try to, just try to have fun. But yes, there are, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, for me personally, I've always wanted to be an open book because of the things that I've struggled and dealt with in the past, but also like, I want people to know that like Jesus can help with whatever you're going through. And I've gone through some terrible situations with past employment. I've gone through, just depression and feeling super, super, like not needed in this world. Yeah. But also at the same time, like God has done some healing through some of that. And so I could talk about those things, and I want to talk about those things because he's done something for me. Even if he hasn't done something for me, I still want to be optimistic that he's like, it's right around the corner. Yes. Because we sing about these things. Yes. We talk about these things and what Jesus can do. And I've always wanted my life to just be that encouragement, that testimony of what Jesus can do for other people. Because if he could do it for me, God Almighty, right? Like the word, like I felt like I was the worst of the worst. I didn't go, I didn't serve like hard jail time. What people would say is like the worst of the worst in like society, but I did some pretty terrible things, and
and I think that's important to share. Now. But I think that there's also different levels. Like, I mean, if you and Erica were having problems, like you probably wouldn't share that with everybody. There would probably be no. You know what I mean? Like there's work things. So there's still a different level. But I think like our past and our history, especially when we get to a place of healing where we can talk about those things and we are sharing the ways that God has brought us out of that, rather than still sharing from a place of hurt and those things. Like there's even wisdom and discernment in that. Like there was a point in time where I knew that it was finally time for me to be able to share more of my story from the stage than what I've ever done before. Yeah. And it was like, I had to wait until that moment. I knew that moment would be coming, but I had to wait until that moment of different healing level to be able to share in that way. I had to wait to the moment of knowing that like, okay, well, even though some people in my family or that are close to me don't know these things, it's okay, because if they truly love and care about me, they're going to care about me and that pain and that hurt that I experienced more than somebody's reputation.
Yeah.
Those types of things. Like, that was a lot of the stuff that I had to deal with before I could share, like, at a certain level. And so even within that, like, there were things I'd share with group, or I'd share with, like, if anybody wanted to know my story, I'd be like, hey, let's go get together, just block out a couple hours, because it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
If you want to know fuller, but I think, like, I would do that in a heartbeat, like in a smaller setting, even before I shared on stage, because I do believe, like, that we go through things and we experience those struggles in order to help people. Like, granted that initially that was never part of the original plan.
Yeah.
But now that we do live in a world that was broken, then we do have these things we deal with. And so we are supposed to share those things. And that's part of, that discipleship aspect too, is like letting people know those things, letting people in at a different level.
Well, one of the things that's highlighted here, and it's just kind of like a great, just, I don't know, I don't want to say declaration, but it does happen through relationship and experience, but it's also on a very personal level.
Yeah.
Like, that's whenever you talk about, like, these people that have been married for 50 years, right? They've gone through some stuff, but they've talked about it. They've shared through it. They've helped carry another's burdens through whatever it could be. Yeah. And then whenever you ask them, you're like, dude, what's the secret to your married? And you're like, how come y'all have been together for 50 plus years or whatever? And one of the things that they will always say is communication, and that is talking. Yeah. And obviously through a disciple-making thing, like, it's difficult to, I can't just be like, hey, dude, why don't you come live with me? I can't do that. But still going through life and sharing life with each other and communicating and talking about those things, even if it's just a date where you're just like, oh, what's your favorite movie or whatever? You went to the theater this past weekend. What'd you watch? What'd you like about it? Yeah. Because just allowing those conversations to happen, it does allow for just some walls to be torn down. Yeah, absolutely. And, like, because you're not going to go in. Like, it's hard to go to somebody that you've never known or that you know nothing about and just be like, okay, so share with me, what's your struggles? Like, what's your deepest, darkest secret? What's your deepest desire? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go and do that. Like, you will get nowhere. There needs to be some trust and some rapport built up. Yeah. And that's part of that relationship building. Plus, until you get to really know someone, you don't know how to really help them or guide them. Like, everybody is we talk a lot about our faith journey here. Like, everybody is at a different place in their journey, whether they don't know God yet or they've known him for a long time. Yeah. Like, everybody is at a different place, and the Holy Spirit works within them in a different way, in a different level, in a different time frame. And so it is a very personal thing to know, like, where someone's at and what they're going through. Yeah. What do you think would happen to even just the church as a whole if a said group of people were able to just devote themselves to becoming disciple makers and finding someone to disciple through that process? What do you think would happen to the church as a whole? Not just necessarily like here at Southridge, but I mean, even that's a good question. What would even happen here, but even as the church in America as a whole, if we were committed to this? Yeah. I mean, I think true transformation. I think a lot of problems would be solved. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, we talked about unity in this past series, right? And like that typically division and things are caused by the lack of spiritual maturity. Yeah. If you are if you are focused on helping somebody, like, disciple somebody else, somebody's discipling you also in the process. Like, you know, you've probably heard, like, you should have somebody above you and somebody below you, like that you're always having that dynamic where you have somebody that you can go to for those questions and those things, and somebody that you're also pouring into. Like,
if you're doing that, you're constantly helping to mature spiritual believers to a level that true transformation and change can happen, to where then you don't have that lack of spiritual maturity. Because what we see in a lot of churches today is that people they just come for the service, they sit, they hear, they go out, nothing really changes.
Yeah.
And so when you actually focus on disciple making, then you see change start to happen. You see more people actually, extending love and compassion and generosity and exercising humility, and not just within the church, but in their workplaces and their homes and their, friendships and their relationships with their families. Like, you see these things start to happen where you will see true change. And like, I feel like it's one of those where you begin to see that new creation here now, that like those moments when things like that happen beautifully, like I truly believe like that feeling of the kingdom of God is here. Yeah. And you see that, you experience like, and it's a beautiful thing. So I just see like a lot of things being healed, made whole, being made right, and less division, less, heartbreak. Because like if you're truly being discipled, like you're not going out and gossiping, you're not going out and treating people poorly, hurting people. Because a lot of times when we hurt people, it's unintentional. Even like we're not trying to hurt somebody, we're just broken and we lack that maturity to understand what we should or shouldn't say or shouldn't do. And so like I think you'll see a lot less of that. You'll see a lot more people helping meet the needs of the communities that they're in. Yeah. And like, I dream about those kind of things of like, man, because I just really, truly believe that like, if the churches would stop fighting about all these other stupid little things about what we're teaching, what we think, what we believe, and we would just get on board with like, let's be outward focused. Like, let's forget about us for a minute, what I want, what music I want, whatever. Like, and let's all just focus on what the community needs. Like if we actually come together in those things, like I see so much good being able to happen. Yeah. Instead of focusing on all this other little stuff here and there. Like when we actually.
Well, it's because like one of the things that, one church could be doing really good at like pooling resources or know how to get a hold of people. Say if like you're trying to bless families or something like that for Christmas. One church may have like their hand on that. And they've gone through like a lot of the hard work and the information gathering, so to speak, of trying to figure out how to stretch a dollar to get the most out of it, to be able to ultimately bless more with little. And another church may not be so good at that. They still have the desire and the passion to be able to do something like that, but they just don't have the knowledge, maybe not even the manpower to be able to devote that kind of time to figure that out. And so whenever there's a focus on creating disciples and doing that, then we allow for more people to be able to jump on to these projects that we're doing, because they're like, you know what? I've been called to be Jesus. So if that's speaking up for injustices that are happening, if that is providing whenever there's provision that needs to be met, or needs that need to be met, just whatever that looks like, then we all just sit there and go, you know what, we're just all focused on being Jesus to whatever that looks like. That could be items for Beauty Day or Impact Schools or whatever. Yeah. And it's not like because I don't want to, there's been some times where we feel like we're under the gun trying to find items or some things for these events, and God blesses us, and I'm super grateful for that.
Right. But it's like, what if, because that is a reality in our community, is the addiction recovery stuff. And that home that facility sits in the backyard of many of our churches. And it's like, what could that day look like if all of us just got together and like forgot about the fact that we all serve at different churches or attend different churches, but remember that we were part of the big church, and like we just come together and say, you know what, we're gonna all come together and make this day like amazing.
I think it's so many times people get caught up on Southridge Church or some other church name getting that, and that's the wrong kind of glory. Yeah,
because all the glory should be going to God, right? All of it should be going to Him. It's not about us. It's not about what we do. It's not about what Lori does. Like, Lori's one of the main leaders for that. Like, it's not about her. It's not about any of that. Like, it's about what God can do through all of us. And it goes back to that. Like, I just see that if we're really doing this right, then we'll see that transformation, and we'll see it spill over like outside of our personal lives, because that's really what the disciples did. Like, they weren't like those moments when they were focused about themselves, like, hey, I want to sit on your right and I want to sit on your, like, they were put in their place to be reminded that, like, listen, it's not about that. Like, that's something you don't need to be concerned about or worried about. Like, you can't even decide that. Like, focus on these things. It was always about bringing the kingdom of God here, like, and creating a space in a world where it was making it more like how it should be. So anyway, sorry.
So you have like this kind of like layout here.
And this stuff, this stuff came from a peer huddle. So I'm a part of a peer huddle through something called the Full Strength Network, which is, it's something for pastors. So if you're a pastor listening to this, you should look into it. When I joined, it was a lot cheaper than what it is now. But you get access to like counseling or coaching through it. You get access to financial help. You get access to, you can join a peer huddle. And so I'm part of a peer huddle. We meet monthly, and he has different people come in and speak on different things, whether it's like stuff church related or personal or whatever. And so I thought that this was some really good stuff that we went through within this. So it's not my layout, I'll say that.
Yeah. So it's this layout of kind of like steps of like, there's some good things to just kind of think about and talk through this, explain it, and let's walk through it. And if I have questions, I'll interject like I typically do.
Yeah. So within this, and I'm sorry, I can't even remember the name of the man who took us through this, but within this, he talked a lot about like being a discipleship coach, like discipleship coaching, and kind of looking at it more of like a coaching aspect rather than like mentoring or that kind of thing, because like a coach's job, like what they're to do is to help pull the best out of a player, right? Yeah. And so like within this, even this layout is like, it's all question based of like, your job is to try to like pull the best out of the individual or pull from them, like allow them to answer what they think, what they believe, to help guide them in that way. Yeah. Which I just thought was really cool. And he shared the story of the first disciples with Jesus, that like Jesus was walking, it comes from John 1. And a couple of John's disciples who were there that heard John call out and say like, look, there comes the Lamb of God, talking about Jesus. These couple disciples decided to follow Jesus. And when Jesus looked and saw them following him, he turned around and he said, what do you want?
I'm pretty sure he asked that question a little bit different. Maybe if it was like Jared, but
yeah, it's probably like,
what do you want?
Yeah, probably. What do you want? Like, you're his disciple. What do you want with me? Like, yeah. But he asked them, what do you want? And I think that a lot of times, in our relationship with Christ and our journey of faith, like we often don't even take the time to ask ourselves this question. Like, what do we want out of this? Like, what do I want in this journey of me following Jesus? Yeah. And it's funny because even like, if you read the story, like they reply and they're like, where are you staying? And he's like, well, come and see. And so he invites them to just come and see, come along. Like, but it's, because I don't know if Jesus asked me, what do you want? I don't know that I'd be like, hey, where are you staying tonight? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like I
have 100,000 questions I need to ask you. don't care about where you're sleeping right now. Sorry, Jesus.
I know. But so like he just invites them to come, and they go and they remain with him throughout the day. And they, you know, I mean, I'm sure in that moment, like in that time frame that they're with him, they probably do have conversation and those kind of things. But like, so it talks about like first, you know, establishing that, that you are there as a safe person for someone that you're working with. And then knowing that a discipleship coach is to help walk through a process. It gives these 7 simple questions, 7 specific steps to help a conversation unfold. And so the first is about vision. And so it kind of is that, like, what do you want? Like, what do you want personally and spiritually? Whether that's out of this process of me and you getting together for me to help coach you and help you become a better disciple. Like, what do you want in that? What do you want just in life personally? Like, is there something that you're hoping that this is going to help change in your life? Maybe you're struggling in your marriage and you know that this is something you need to do, you know, both personally and spiritually to help your marriage, better your marriage. Like, asking that question is super important because that's gonna help steer the rest of it, right?
Oh yeah.
Like if it's, hey, I just need to know, like I need to get better at knowing what my limitations are, or like, you know, I've always done this, I've always drank, I've always whatever. Like I need help understanding how to reconcile my old self with now my new self and getting some of those things in line with God. Like it will change that dynamic of, so you always start there, like with the vision of what you want out of that. And then the second is goals. So like, what goal could you set to acquire what you want? Because we could easily say like, well, I want a better marriage. I want to be a better wife. I want to be a better mom. I want to, you know, whatever. I want to be healthier. Like you could say those things, but okay, now that's what you want, but how can we get there? Like,
yeah. I say this all the time with like anybody that I'm trying to talk to about like leadership or anything like that. It's like you always set your goal. Okay. I know that I want to be able to do so and so. I know that I want to be able to run a half marathon, you know, by the end of the year. So I know that I've got to put in time. I've got to put in exercise. I've got to be eating right. I've got to do whatever I've got to do that's going to get me to that half marathon. But then I've got to set like little goals along the way that help me achieve that, because there's not going to be one day where I wake up and I go, okay, I'm ready to run a half marathon. Like that's stupid. Like nobody ever says that. Like if you do, you wake up and you start running and then you throw up 10 minutes later. But if I have these little goals along the way that are like little milestones that I'm reaching for, then it's an easier thing to see come to fruition. Because if I'm focused on a bigger picture, nobody just says, I'm leaving, I'm going to Nepal and I'm climbing Mount Everest. No, you are not. You will die and they will leave your body on the side of the mountain like they do everybody else that woke up that one day and said, this is something I want to do. It's little goals to get you to the point of being able to climb Mount Everest.
Exactly. And so like even within
Sorry if that was a little too much, but that's just what happens.
That's all right. That's okay. I'm used to it.
You gave me that look.
I think they're probably used to it by now too. No, it's okay. But within this, like goals, if you also look, like you see that goals is kind of listed out as the next several steps, like the letters. So like within your goals, you have options, action, launch, and sustain. And so like the next thing is like, okay, what options do you have to accomplish that goal? Like, so like if I want to go back to school, okay, what are my options? Like, what schools could I go to for what I want to study? What options do I have to pay for that school? Like, digging out those things, because it's easy to say I want to go back to school and study psychology, but like, okay, what schools? What can I afford? What can I, what options do I actually have to do that? Action. This is the kind of the real key to change, because you got to act on it at some point. So which one of those options will you actually choose to act on? So like, if I know that, I have this option, that option, this option for school, like, okay, which one am I going to actually act on? Which one am I going to actually apply to? which one, I mean, if we take this spiritually and our goal is to just read our Bible every day. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have the option to read a physical Bible. You have an option to read from the Bible version app, like YouVersion app. You have, you know, all kinds of different studies that you could use to do that. I was about to say
like, study Bibles,
yeah,
like walkthroughs of you know, breakdowns of specific books of the Bible.
So within that, then like what options are going to actually help you accomplish that better? Like which one are you going to actually act on? Is having a physical Bible kind of your go-to, like you have a space and a time that you can sit it at and do it, or is like that going to be crazy because you have 3 little kids and, you know, you never know where you're going to be at or if you're going to have it on you. Like, so maybe your phone is usually within 3 feet of you 24/7 hours a day, right? Like that's typical, like is that like research shows that typically people's phones are within 3 feet of them 24 hours out of the day.
That's crazy.
Isn't it?
I want to throw my phone.
Like, and so that's why, like, I mean, that's why a lot of marketing now is using text messaging, because the open rate is extremely high. Yeah. And also this is near people more than anything. So anyway, so what option are you actually going to act on? Launch, what would help you launch into action? So this is something that like I put like a key tip for people in our journey through Luke was to go ahead and set aside the time of day, the place, all of that you're going to do it. 'Cause like research shows that if people like just saying I'm going to do this and I'm going to start it, like people want to pick a start date, but they don't necessarily pick a time or a place or that kind of thing. And so getting some of those decisions out of the way ahead of time actually helps you be more successful to do it when it comes time.
But
to
also
do it.
setting like reminders on your phone to be able to, you're like,
those kind of things like that every day at 9 o'clock, I get a reminder to do the journey through Luke or whatever it is, you know, like I do a lot of my personal study in the evening after the kids go to bed. Yeah. Because my kids are very unpredictable in the mornings and I have boys who like to wake up super early. And as the sun starts coming up earlier and earlier, it's going to be even harder for me. And so like, but I know their bedtime is a set time. And so I put them to bed and then I know I have at least this amount of time before one of them might stir or something. Yeah. And so I do a lot of mine then, as opposed to the beginning of the day. It doesn't necessarily matter when you do it, just that you do it, right? But like setting that time. So like when I started working out this time around, I think part of why I have been successful to sustain it and stick with it is because I set my days, my time, and my place. I set it ahead of time. Like instead of just saying, I want to go to the gym 3 days a week, I said, I'm going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m. at the Y. And I've stuck to that. Like it's gotten either a little bit closer or a little later. Like the times that like there has been a random thing that's happened in the schedule, I've been able to make up for it because I've already set that habit, like to where it's now a habit. It's now a discipline, like and a desire now. It's not just a thing that I was trying to create a discipline for. It is now an actual desire that I have to go do it. And so now I'm able to make up for those times. Like last week I didn't go on Monday, but I went down on Saturday morning because I was up already anyway and went into the gym at the hotel that we were at. Like, and so I'm able to make up for this. But so like setting aside those specifics, like any decision that you need to make in order to actually make it happen, the more decisions you answer, like the more questions or things that surround it beforehand that you can do. Like, so going to the gym, setting out your clothes ahead of time. Yeah. So that way in the morning, you're not like, oh, where are my gym clothes? What am I going to wear to the gym? Like it's already there. Because that can like derail you too. Like to where it's like, I don't have anything clean. Like if you make sure that you have it and it's there ready to go for you, then it's a real simple thing. It's already taken that out of the equation in the morning when I'm tired and dealing with kids at the same time. And so like all those things, like if those things are going to help launch you into action, then do it. Yeah. So, and then sustain is the S of goals, like who can sustain you with support and accountability. Yeah. So like even knowing when you're working with someone, you can't necessarily be with them throughout their whole life. And so like they may have a close friend, another friend that they can go to and say, okay, I need you to help me sustain this and keep me accountable in this. So like for me, going to the gym, like my friend Jenny was my sustain and accountability. Like, and she's fallen off at times and I've had to help get her back on. And there's
whenever you called her, you're like, I need help. Now you're helping her.
Yes.
But one of the things that John Maxwell says in his 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is the law of momentum. They call it the big Mo. And it's real easy to create this momentum.
Yes.
Whenever we want to see change in our life, spiritually, personally, physically, whatever that may be. So it's real easy to get like really on board.
Because you're jacked, you're excited about something initially.
But the sustaining momentum is the hard part.
Yes.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Because it's real easy to get people excited about something new, about something that we've got going on. But to continue with that, like you do need someone that can like be your biggest cheerleader, to be your biggest encouragement.
At times, like, you know, we're in this debt campaign, like reduction campaign, like for the future campaign. Yeah. We're in that. And like, because it's a 3-year process of what we've given, like we have to bring it back up every now and then. And we have to give a monthly update. We have to do a service every now and then to recall it to mind, to sustain that momentum, to sustain that goal, and keep people accountable to it, because it's really easy, like out of sight, out of mind. You don't hear about it for too long.
Oh, I know.
You forget about it. Like, even if you set up the recurring gifting or like whatever, it's still like, okay. But like hearing that, seeing that number drop every time, seeing and hearing about the principal that now, like the amount of money that's going to principal in addition to what was before, like hearing it keeps that, it sustains that, it does that. Like for Erica, you know, like when she first started going her schooling, she's super excited, right? Like now that she's like working and doing it and she's far into it, it's probably a little bit harder for her to like. Well, she's a
I get it. She's a different person.
Yeah, I know.
That woman's so stinking motivated.
I know. So that's a bad example, but
I've been in that same spot for myself.
Yeah.
Like whenever I was going through school and like it was real, I was super excited. I'm like, man, I'm learning all this stuff that I really enjoy, like digital art and graphic design, and I get to look at fonts all day, which is like, I don't know, it's that's the nerd side of me, but I love it. And a year and a half into it, we find out Erica's like expecting Nolan, and I'm like, oh. So that momentum, like my grades suffered, obviously, because we had some big life things happening, but I took a step away for like a semester, and I was like, okay, I got to get back into that. And it was hard to create that momentum again after something, so I could finish my stinking degree.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. But so, you know, making them, like reminding them that they need somebody in their corner. Like no matter how motivated you are, you still need somebody in your corner at some point, like to be there, because there will be moments where like maybe you're like, oh gosh, I might have failed that test, or I don't know if I can take this, like whatever, that you need somebody there in your corner that you can share the things and share your progress with, and that type of stuff. Like it was, you know, I don't know, like I loved the fact that Jenny, some of our first times back to the gym, like I'm doing stuff that like some of the things we did initially when we first started was hard for me to even do, like the amount of weight that she was doing. And now where I sustained it during a time where she was sick or kids were sick, like whatever. Yeah. And I've kept going. Like I'm able to do more than she is now. And she's like, Cheryl, you're a beast. And I'm like, no, actually I've been here. Like I've still been doing things. So I've been increasing my weight and stuff where you haven't been able to. I'm like, no, it's okay. Like it's not that, like I couldn't do the stuff that you were doing first. Like it's part of that progress. But even like in that, like helping her to not be discouraged in that moment, to know that it's okay. But so, you know, really helping them think through, who can I share this progress with? Who can I go to? And praying always, like before you leave, you should always pray for someone. Okay. Like how can I pray for you as you take this action, as you do this thing? But even just remembering that, like, within Jesus' walk with the disciples, with his disciples, most of the conversations he asked questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even like he often answered those questions, but like a lot of times within it, like they would maybe ask a question, he'd ask a question back. Like he did this so many times. I mean, even with the Pharisees and others, like they would come to him and then he would ask a question too. And he maybe would tell a story or answer. And just remembering when you're discipling somebody, it's probably always more important to ask questions than it is for you to just talk.
Yeah.
I think that's a big, big key. I've been meeting with somebody pretty regularly, and what I do with her is I ask a question and then I sit back in the silence. Like, and it's hard for me to do because I really hate silence. But I know with this individual, I could easily fill that silence and answer, but I know that she needs to get to that place where she can answer it herself. And I know that she will if I give her time enough to process the question and dig deep into herself and into her spirit for that. And so it's been really cool to see those moments when I've been meeting with her where that's happened, where because I learn a lot when I'm listening to her answer.
Yeah.
I've learned so much about how to disciple her better through listening to her answers from some of these questions. Where then, because of what she says and what I've listened and heard her say, I then am able to rely on the Spirit to give me what I need to say in that moment to pour into her what she needs. And so, and that's really like, one of the other big things to remember too is that like, it's not you and your knowledge, your power, it's the Holy Spirit. Yeah. Period. Like, period. With all of this, like you can't change the person. You can't transform them. It's going to be the Holy Spirit that does it. And you may not feel like you know what to say. Like some people who are newer to faith or maybe don't feel like they know the Bible very well, may feel like they don't have what it takes to disciple somebody. But that's just it. None of us really do.
Yep.
But all of us, if you are a follower of Jesus, have the Holy Spirit living inside of you. And we have that to rely on, that power to rely on, to know like what we need to say, what we should ask, when we need to remain quiet.
Yeah.
Because there are times even that maybe like, you're like, oh, this person is making such stupid choices and you want to just yell at them. Yeah. But that's not the right approach. And so just really, really relying on the Holy Spirit for what you need to give in that process and what transformation needs to take place in the individual's life as well.
Yeah. Well, this is a good one. I enjoyed it.
I forgot about the mystery meat.
Time for mystery meat. Oh, how could you forget? This is like your favorite thing that we do.
I don't know.
Just depends on the question.
Oh, yeah. Well, Megan caught me on Sunday. I was trying to read one of these. I was like spinning it around and she sent me a message. She said, "Are you trying to count how many questions are in there?"
Oh, there's over 50.
And I was like, no, I was trying to read. I was trying to get it.
I need to go through and like fold these up better than. Don't look ahead. Let's focus on the one that's in my hand.
The likelihood of me getting one that I actually am able to read is not high. So
yeah. All right. So mystery meat. If you're new to the podcast and listening, and we thank you for joining us, but mystery meat, it's just like at any potluck that you go to, there is a mystery meat and you don't know what it is. And sometimes you put a scoop on your plate and it could be delicious and it's awesome and it's so satisfying. And then sometimes it is, you wish to never, ever try that food ever again. So, and what it is. And so we have a whole bunch of random questions that sometimes they're user submitted or Chat GPT has helped create. But anyways, they go in a jar and they're randomly mixed up. And so we don't even know what the question is. But the question for this week is if you could create a new holiday, what would it be called and how would people celebrate it?
A new holiday.
It could be anything. It could even be like Cheeseburger Day or whatever. Like it could, because they have people that actually Like, do that. Like, oh, yesterday was, granddaughter's day. You're like, I don't even have a granddaughter.
Well,
like, what
I'm
are you
curious
talking about?
because, like, there's those calendars that people have that show, like, all the different things that are celebrated on that day. So I'm curious if we could even actually come up with a day that's not technically celebrated somewhere. I would probably have just a reading or relaxing day. And it would be, like, just you find a comfy, cozy place.
They call those Sabbaths.
Well, yeah. Okay.
You're supposed to take one every week.
I apparently really like my Sabbath. Okay.
We call it Sabbath's Day. And what we do is we just lounge around and read. Catch up on movies or television shows.
You just shot down my idea.
No, we just created a holiday. I mean, we didn't create it. I mean, it's biblical.
I'm pretty sure God created it when he created the world, but,
Look at you trying to be like Jesus.
I have been discipled.
Yes. I'm more like God than I realized. On the days I fall short, I just have to remember that I tried to create a Sabbath day. So it's all good. I'd do like I don't know, eat your favorite thing day.
Chocolate eating day where you just get all the different types of chocolates you can get.
They have chocolate festivals.
See,
I would vomit.
I don't think we could come up with. I know. Like I can get. Have you ever? I remember one year. Actually, I did this multiple years in a row, I think, where I was like making pumpkin rolls and stuff, and I kept eating a lot of the icing.
Oh gosh!
And after so much sugar, I feel like you get sick, but also like I would always end up with a headache too, because it'd be
that's called pre-diabetes. Dude, that is so bad. If you start eating so much sugar and you're getting dizzy, like that is bad.
Yeah. So
like I always get sick for the people like on
we need
Survivor.
a veggie eating day.
Yeah, maybe to balance out the.
Pastor Scott has to eat vegetables on that day. He'd
die. He'd rather.
No.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, he likes green beans.
You gotta have enough bacon to offset the veggie-ness of green beans.
We've done like a Daniel fast here before or whatever, and like he would make green beans and like fried potatoes or whatever.
I don't know. Maybe a hamburger day. I know they probably have one. I like I like really good hamburgers. I don't like nasty ones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe you know what would be a good holiday?
A spa day.
No.
I guess that might be Sabbath too.
Like everybody in Charleston, West Virginia, would have to get on social media and invite better restaurants to come here. My goodness. What does it take to get a stinking Popeyes or something?
But I feel like Charleston has a lot of good local things.
No, they don't. The restaurant scene here is terrible. Y'all just don't know what good restaurants are.
Well, there's some good ones. Have you tried every single local place here?
I've tried enough.
What have you tried?
I've tried everything from Noah's, which is expensive, which we didn't necessarily were excited about. I mean, even more so because it was like $150, $200 stinking meal. And we've tried even like the what is it? Where did they do the ABC show where they put people undercover and they try to like make them like put them in like terrible social situations, and then they try to see how the people would react. Like this, like husband and wife get in an argument, and so like they're trying to see what the people in line behind them are gonna react about, and they're like, hey, you know, to see like if they stand in, hey, let's not do that. I don't care if y'all are fighting. Don't treat your wife that way. And then the guys come out with the camera and he's like, hey, why did you interject in this fight? You're like, what are you doing with a camera in my face, you big ding dong? Like, have you never seen that show?
I don't know. I'm guessing
they were here in Charleston.
At what restaurant?
At the restaurant I'm trying to tell you about that I've tried to that I've eaten at.
What kind of food did they have?
I don't know. We ate there as a staff one time. They had burritos, and it's downtown.
Black Sheep?
Is it Black Sheep? It's like Black Sheep. Yeah, maybe Black Sheep. I got a breakfast burrito there with like chorizo and egg. Anyways, suffice it to say,
yeah, they're not as good.
It's not as good. See, it's not as good.
It used to be good.
Yeah.
Well, the one in Huntington was good.
That's what I'm trying to say. We should have a holiday where people invite.
Have you been to Lola's?
To Lola's?
Mm-hmm. It's a little pizza place. Looks like
yes.
a little house on that.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to Tintin?
No, I haven't been there. We've given up because every time that we ate out, it was just not that good.
You can't give up.
I gave up eating out anyways.
You guys also cook really, really well. So
you know why I cook really well?
You need to open a restaurant.
I could. I just don't want to put the time and effort to do that.
Pastor's Potluck.
Oh, dude. People wouldn't even know what hit them because you're gonna walk in one day and they'll be like, "Dude, what are we doing? Like crawfish festival today?" That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. I don't have anything like that around here. Yeah.
I know. I've worked at restaurants too. The hardest part would be coming up with a menu.
Yeah, that you can sustain.
Yeah.
All of that, but no.
As we go through our goals
I know.
that we just talked about. Oh gosh.
No. Yeah. No. We probably don't have the best, but like I would rather more better local places than like chain stuff.
But here's the thing.
But I know chain stuff like you gotta keep it at a certain. Yeah, it's consistent. You gotta keep it at a certain standard, or it doesn't. Yeah, I know, but
consistency is key in restaurants.
Yeah.
If you can be consistent with, if somebody says, I want chicken tenders, and they go every single time, and the chicken tenders are just as good as the first time they had it to the 100th time they've had it, then you know you've done something successful. That word.
Successful.
I can't even say that word correctly. Successfully.
Well, hey, if you would like this handout at some point, if you were like, hey, I really want to know some more about that.
Spam
I was
your
given permission.
inbox.
Yeah, I was given permission that I could share this with whoever. So that's why I shared it with you. But I can share this with you, and you can have some things to go by to help you disciple other people's and be successful in your disciple making.
Thanks. We'll see you later on that one. Y'all have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.